Hey, Levi,
What's up?
you want to talk about the time that God once terrorized an entire nation?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, cool. Hey guys, welcome to the Bible is Metal.
Welcome.
We're back for episode. I don't remember which one this is. I think it's like 8.
Uh,
I want to say 8.
7.
Is it 7?
I think it's 7.
No, maybe. I don't know.
I feel
We're
like
back.
It's 7.
We're back again.
We're back at it again.
We're back at it. Back at it again with the white vans. So,
Damn, Daniel.
I have a really good friend named Daniel, and every time I do that to him, he looks like he wants to stab me in the throat. I'm sure when that vine came out, he's just
His life ended.
his life ended at that point, and it pisses him off so bad. And I love just messing with him.
I loved those vines. Damn, Daniel.
Back at it again with the
Back
white.
at it
Did you ever
again.
see the remixes?
Yeah.
Back at it again with the white vans.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's too good. Ben. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, Levi.
This week,
Oh my gosh, Levi.
Kill Switch Engage.
Oh, is it this week?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they released their album.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the concert.
Oh, no.
Oh.
No, they released their new album this week.
Oh, I did see that,
Yeah.
and then I didn't do anything about it.
So sad. See, like Kill Switch Engage is like one of my favorite bands of all time, and I've followed them like since before the one album that everybody started following them.
Was it End of Heartache?
End of Heartache, yeah.
Okay.
Like I was there when I'm probably not like the biggest number one fan out there. Like I don't know all the guys' names and all that, but I've been listening to them for a long time. Like since the white singer.
Since Jesse,
Since
and then
that
Howard,
guy, yeah.
and now Jesse's back.
I mean, I love Howard, but man, Jesse, he's I did miss him.
Right.
I did miss him. He was
Yeah.
pretty intense. But yeah, man, I've been listening to the record, and I got to say there are some songs that are growing on me. Like, and I feel like that's kind of how some of their songs are. Like, I'll get the initial like listen, and I'll be like, oh yeah, this is pretty good, but it's not like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna listen to it over and over again, because I'm totally the kind of person that will exercise a song millions of times before I'm tired of it. And so I feel like there's a couple of those songs that will take some time to grow on me, but dude,
Yeah.
I am
Are you
digging it.
You're digging it?
Yeah. The Signal Fire with Howard.
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
I saw that on the new core playlist, and I didn't listen to it.
It's
I
so
should have,
good.
but
It's so
I
good.
didn't. Yeah.
I love it. I watched the video like 5 times already. And every time when it comes to the point to where Howard is like coming into the scene and like he's picking up the mic, I just get a little bit of chills up my back. I'm like,
Yeah.
Howie!
Howie. Someday you have to do that to his face.
My cousin did that to his face.
I know. That's why I'm telling you should do it. You told the story.
Yeah.
So, like,
If ever I meet Howard, I just
so when we go see Light the Torch,
yeah.
are you gonna do that?
When there's like silence in the middle of songs, I'm just gonna yell Howie.
Oh, you're gonna be that guy.
I'm gonna be that guy,
I
Dude.
love you, Howie.
dude. And
And
we
I
also
oh yeah,
we also saw a show recently.
we did see a show.
did.
We went to go see Era, Crystal Lake, and Currents.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't see North Lane.
We did
'cause
not.
North Lane's boring now. I wish. I don't know. I'm gonna get some Australian hate mail for that,
We're
but
sorry,
whatever.
North Lane. We just
We're
don't like your
not.
new album.
I'm not. It's just your stuff is elevator rock music. It's not good.
Yeah, we had to
Like,
talk about that.
I'm
yeah.
sitting there. I'm like, dude, the local opener, their music was better than North Lane's new album, and
Dude, I felt like that local opener. It was the same song over and over.
they
and
literally
over
just
again.
played the same song. They didn't literally play the same song 5 times. It felt like they played.
It
the same
felt
song.
like they played the same song 5 times.
Yeah,
I gotta say the drum set did sound pretty good though.
it sounded good. The drummer needed to work on his feet.
A little
Which
bit,
is
yeah.
rich coming from me because my feet are terrible. But I will freely admit that I will not play drums live like that because I just can't do it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't know. Like, I mean, it sounded like from a sound quality perspective, it sounded good. Just their songwriting was just can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I felt like
And
the
then
singer, and you know what? It's like I have a hard time like dogging on new bands because I know every single great band started out like that
Yeah.
local band that wasn't that
Mhm.
great. Nobody knew who they were,
Right.
and then they freaking made it, man. Everybody
Right.
started loving them again, and like
Mhm.
now they can come out with shit on a stick, and
Mhm.
you know,
Right. I mean, that's the biggest thing that I'm at is like, I mean, I was like watching it, and it's like the lead singer to me looked like he was trying too hard. So he's just like, "How the f you doing? What the f is up?" Like
Yeah.
every sentence, and you're just like, "Okay, this is getting a little old," you know.
hmm
And then not only that, but like he's getting like I mean, and all the guitar riffs are just kind of like copy pasted off of whatever's popular right now,
Mhm.
right? Like,
hmm
and that's the thing is like nowadays because it's so saturated, because making music is so easy now,
hmm
like you're starting to get oversaturated with all these like smaller metal bands, and they drown out the truly unique ones, I guess. Like, because one of my favorite ones, there's a band I know called Time the Evaluator. I cannot compare them to anything else. They sound so different. They're kind of like this weird mix of like gent and like prog metal, and honestly a little bit of funk thrown in there with like some of those like soaring power metal vocals
Yeah.
like on top. It's just kind of like if they took all the metal in the world and then took all the best parts out of it and made a band. It's like I can't like stuff like that where it's like where
Yeah.
someone actually comes out and does something different,
hmm
you know, and it's like you don't sound like anyone else,
Yeah.
and it's good and I like it. Like those are the bands that I like to try to find.
Absolutely.
But then but for every one of those there's 15 bands where it's like 7-string guitars,
hmm
like like chuggy chuggy chuggy.
hmm Speaking of
Chuggy.
genty goodness, did you watch the recent video from Jared Dines and CVT?
Yes, I did.
I love that video.
Well, they were sitting across each other. Like both of them at this point are just memes. So it's like
Yeah.
they're sitting across from each other with like literally like 19-string guitars. I'm not making this
Yeah.
up. It is so funny, because it's like, and then they're just. You just have to watch it. It's so funny.
And like Stevie's got more strings. I think he's got like 2 more strings on his. He shows up. I forget what he says, but he's basically still mocking him.
I
Like,
think because I think Stevie's got like 23 and Jared
yeah,
has like
he's
20.
like, you look a little short over there with 2 less strings.
Well, it's funny because you look at like those guitars and I'm like, they're made for as a joke. Like
Yeah,
they're not
practical
they're
at
not
all.
practical at all. They're not designed to be practical.
Yeah.
Like the lowest string on those is lower than like a 6-string bass by like 2 octaves. Like they're
Oh, it sounds so chuggy though.
well, like even like their lowest stuff is like they do it like halfway down the fretboard. Like they don't
Yeah.
even do like the last strings because they just don't sound good going through an amp. It's
Yeah.
just like blah, 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 blah. It sounds like a Harley Davidson like idling because it vibrates so slow. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
yeah.
Produskies.
So what else have you been? Just the Kill Switch Engage. Is that kind of like?
I've been rocking on a lot to that.
Mm.
Like I'll be honest, that kind of took up my time this week.
That is fair.
Because
You
like
find a new album you like and you just go nuts.
yeah, and I actually forgot that it was coming out this week, and it was my buddy David who sent me a message. He sent me a message on Marco Polo, and he's like, "Dude, Killswitch Engage came out with a new album this week." I'm like, "What? What?"
What's
Yeah, yeah, and ran straight to my music player and started playing it, and I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah, that's always good. The problem
Yeah.
whenever a new album comes out, I have to wait till I have access to like a good pair of headphones or something before I can let myself listen to it.
As I Lay Dying also came out with a new video. I don't think it was this week. I think it was probably last week.
Shaped by Fire.
Yeah. That one's really good too.
Yeah, that one's pretty good. I like it.
They
It's
just
not
need
as
to come
good
out
as-
with an album.
They just need to come out with
already.
the album.
Just
It was
need
really
to-
funny reading the comment section on that. I was part of a Reddit thread that got locked because everyone's just like, "Wow, Tim sucks." It's like it's really like one person actually brought up something really funny where they're like, "Yeah, like we understand, like you know, like rising above obstacles and defeating giants is kind of a staple in metalcore lyrical content, right? Because it is."
Yeah.
But he's like, it sounds weird when it's coming from someone who brought it on himself, and I'm like, that's a valid point.
Valid.
Like
It is
like
valid.
yeah, it's like it's funny, but then there's still the whole thing where it's like I got in this argument with this dude who's like, dude, he's just like, because the fun thing is no one's actually denying that he's helping,
Yeah.
but the biggest thing is the biggest detractors now is they're saying he's just doing it be a manipulative narcissist, which is because he was that before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, I don't know. I'm choosing to believe that he's not. But
you know what? And I would not disagree with that 100% because we're human.
mm-hmm.
Tim is still human, and yes, he's probably overcome a lot of that. There's probably still some of that there, but the simple fact that his bandmates are giving him a chance,
right?
Which they were the ones that like hated him the most.
They're the ones that disown him, and they would know.
Oh yeah,
right? Like they would know.
Oh yeah, like
so
they made it very clear in that one video that especially the guitar player, the one with the big fro hair. Yeah. I never know the names of the bands that I like.
I do.
Yeah.
I just know Nick because he's a Polynesian dude in a genre taken up by a bunch of angry white dudes.
Yeah. And so he was very clear that he like had utter disdain for Lambesis. Like he hated him genuinely. And so for him to see that change and to give him a second chance, I'm like, you know what? For someone who genuinely hated that person who's now giving him a second chance, I think that's worth listening to.
Right.
I
mean, and part of it is like I'm choosing to believe that he's doing the right thing now. Like he's overcome all this. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's like I know for a fact if I made a big mistake, and I came back and I would want people to extend grace, you know.
Or you would hope.
I would hope people would, like, I wouldn't necessarily like expect them to, but I would hope that they would, you know. And just because it's like the truth is God changes people.
Yeah.
Like he really, really does. And if I have and I have faith that, I don't know where Tim is like spiritually. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that I don't see fingerprints of God working in his life, and that's, and so like, I'm choosing to believe that, it's like, maybe, in 5 years it'll all come crashing down. And it turns out he was just, saying, like, talking the talk and using his band to be famous again because he wanted to be like, if that comes out, then I guess I was wrong, that would be really disappointing, but
it'd be disappointing.
But right now, like, I have faith that God's working on him,
And at the same point, like, we made mention in a previous episode that, like, when we listen to someone's music, it's usually in spite of them as people.
Right.
It's usually because they make good music.
Right.
There's no real loyalty here to Tim because of that. Like, we're listening to the new music because it's good and we enjoy listening to it, not because we have some kind of loyalty to Tim.
Well, not only, like, I mean, I would actually disagree with that a little bit. Not a ton. I'm not like only listen, like, because the music is really good. The stuff they're putting out is awesome.
Yeah.
But and I'm listening because I like it. Like when My Own Grave came out, like I'd never listened to like As I Lay Dying before, because like they were like one of those bands where it's, when they self-destructed, it was kind of a big deal. And
wait, you didn't listen to As I Lay Dying?
No.
Like,
I would have had to field way too many awkward questions from my mom.
Oh.
So.
Oh. Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I never listened to As I Lay Dying.
Oh my gosh.
The heaviest thing I listened to in high school was Red.
Bro. You missed out on so many good things.
I know. And then when they came out, and then
poor child.
And then when My Own Grave came out, I listened to them like, this is really good. And I listened to it over and over and over again for like 3 days because it was awesome. And so I went back and started listening to all the back catalog of all their old stuff. And everything off of The Powerless Rise was probably my favorite. Like, it's so good.
Oh man. Such a good album.
Yeah. So but
I've been listening to them like forever.
but like, because I see it makes it easier to support Tim that the music is good. If the music was bad, I probably wouldn't support him as much. But like, which is why I'm saying it's partially that, because it's partially because it's just I like the music, but also partially it's like I see someone trying to make a difference and trying to make it right, and I want to, and I personally want to extend to him the same grace I would want someone to extend to me if I was legitimately trying to better myself. So like, so that's kind of my mentality is like, I kind of have a little bit more drive to support As I Lay Dying because of Tim specifically. If that makes sense. Yeah. So it's partially true that it's not necessarily in spite of. I think there's a little bit there where I actually am supporting the person
for sure
on top of supporting the music. So
for sure.
So,
cool stuff.
Yeah, cool.
What have you been listening to?
Era.
era. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude, we went like I feel bad because he can't quite hit the notes he can in the studio. Their lead singer, but like instrumentally and musically, they were on point. Like it was incredibly cool to watch. Like it's very rare you get to see technical bands actually play their own material live.
And he wasn't bad. Like he sung pretty well.
He did pretty good.
You know,
like I mean, it's like a solid 7 out of 10. Like it was pretty good. It's like, and he's never been my favorite singer. Like I've always mostly listened to them for the instrumental standpoint, anyway. Because like I mean, because their singer also writes all their guitar music. Like so, their other guitarist just play. As far as I know, he just plays it, but because he'll write all these guitar riffs and then they'll write the songs around him, and they're always like really. Like I love all that syncopated stop and start progressive stuff.
Yeah, you're a prog rock dude.
I am a prog rock dude. I mean, I remember when I was in the car when I was a kid, me and my dad would always listen to the classic rock station. And then we listened to like
Don't I know it?
I remember there is this this afternoon I was working on motorcycle. Like my dad, one things we did in high school is we bought these like old beater motorcycles, and we'd fix them up and go riding and stuff. It's really, really great. One of my favorite memories of high school. But there's this special. They were doing like a Jethro Tull, like I think it was like Jethro Tull was like finally like formally announcing a breakup or something like that. As far as I know, they've since come back and started touring again. But like, which is weird because the dudes are like 70 years old. But they're doing like a retrospective on Jethro Tull, so we listened to old Jethro Tull stuff for like a full afternoon. It was great. Like I love that I love progressive rock.
Yeah.
Especially when they infuse that into my Genty goodness. It's just it's so
good. I love Genty juiciness.
I love Genty goodness and I love prog rock. That is such an unpleasant noise when amplified through a microphone. So a lot of era, listening to a lot of novelists, picking them up again because they're just you missed novelists, didn't you?
I did, unfortunately.
Oh, that's a bummer. They're another band where they're just spot on live because 3 of them run a studio, so they're all just they're a bunch of studio musicians that occasionally play live, so they're just like like their guitarist is a classically trained like flamenco guitarist.
Oh, I love
so
that.
you get kind of like this like really cool like classical fingery vibe on top of like these super great like metal riffs, and it's a cool sound. I really
awesome.
like it. So
that's awesome. Right on.
But yeah, that's what I've been listening to.
So era and novelist, cool.
Era and novelist.
All right, so today we are starting a new story.
We are starting a new story.
We're starting a new story.
And this one is gonna be fun. I know. I'm just trying to figure out. It's like, how can we make this metal? Because here's the reality: is the Bible is metal. I think there's like this weird subconscious thing where we don't want to actually dive into this is really messed up and this is really gross because the Bible isn't supposed to be that way. At least we're raised to believe that.
True. Like, classic Christianity and what we have grown up in has been this very clean Bible vision, like our Sunday schools are built to teach us, yes, the truth of the Bible, but to put
only half of the truth of the Bible. Though.
Yeah,
they teach us the clean truth of the Bible.
It's like the crayon version of the Bible and not the colored pencil version of the Bible.
Right.
It's not as intricate as what the Bible actually is.
Right. I mean, it's like it's not as intricate, but then we don't get a full picture of who God is. You know? And it's like, and I think that does us a disservice too, because it's, like we'll grow up, especially in this day and age. Like my little brother posted a thing that the lead singer of Skillet wrote an article on why so many like people our age are leaving the faith, and why churches in general are just kind of starting to turn into fan clubs. And feel over distilled. It's like, and I think the reason why is because we don't look at the wholeness of who God is, and it's just like, this is just like, if we only look at God is love, and it's like God doesn't, like when you only can go so far into that, it's like God just doesn't really care, It's like not looking like there's like, if God's not viewed as a strong leader and not viewed as like an awe-inspiring power, you don't really follow him. You just kind of exist in the same sphere and let him love you, I guess. Which isn't untrue. Like, I don't want to like.
Yeah.
It's like that loving side of God is is a very core tenet of who he is.
Oh, yeah.
But if we lose sight of the awe-inspiring majesty of God, then it falls flat.
And that's exactly how I felt a little while ago. Like when, like I felt like there were certain sins in my life that I was struggling with, and I was telling a friend of mine, I said, dude, I feel like I don't have enough of a sense of the fear of the Lord. Like the first part of Proverbs tells us,
Like, why should I care about my sin?
Exactly. Like the first part of Proverbs says, to fear the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like I didn't have that, and so especially diving into this and like, the Bible is metal and all that, it feeds to that idea that yes, he is an awe-inspiring, holy, fearful God, that yes, he is a loving God, and that's what our culture likes to paint him mostly as, but he is only loving because of the gruesome death of Christ.
Right.
Like, aside from that, if Christ had not died, he would just be all wrath.
Because
his love came at a price.
Because people suck.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I'm reading through an app right now called Read Scripture, which is great, by the way.
Oh yeah, the Bible Project is amazing.
Read Scripture is actually put up by Francis Chan's ministry, and Francis Chan actually dissolved his church because he was feeling the same way. He's like, church is stupid. We're like, the American church is dumb, and the way that we do church is not okay. So he kind of dissolved it into like a like a bunch of little micro collectives, I guess. I don't know what words you put. Anyway, that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
But Francis Chan's ministry puts out the Read Scripture app, and then the Bible Project supplies all the videos. Yeah. So it's kind of like a joint effort between the two.
Yeah.
So, but I was watching the one on Genesis because I wanted to kind of read. I restarted reading through the Bible again. And Genesis is like basically the entire story over and over again is how God gives us a chance to do the right thing, and then we fail. Yeah. And then he gives us a chance to do the right thing, and then we fail, because just over and over and over again, like we see this pattern emerge of when humans control their own lives and their own destiny, like we screw it up. We hurt each other, we break things, like like, I don't want to get into the political side of it, like the environmental aspect of how, our planet is dying and stuff like that. But but it's like, it's very like, it doesn't take a rocket science to look back and see when people are in control, bad things happen. Right. And yeah, so it's like, that kind of brings us back. It's like, that's why God would be all wrath, because innately we know deep down, like if you've ever read like Mere Christianity by
C.S. Lewis.
C.S. Lewis, yeah. Like, we have this deep sense of right and wrong, and we know the world is not right.
Yeah.
Without the blood of Jesus. So.
Yeah. So, and part of like all of that, getting into the story that we're going to be getting into, I feel like this story, like we all know the story. I don't think Ben and I are going to have to lay too much historical context for this one, because this is a very common story that I think even a lot of like unbelievers, unchurched people know. And that is the story of Moses and the Exodus. Such an intense story that we hear in Sunday school so much, colored as this, I don't know, it's like, yeah, God brought all these plagues on Egypt, but why did he have to do that?
Why did he have to do that? Right.
And I think that's where we want to dive in. Why did he have to bring plagues upon a nation just to rescue Israel?
Just to rescue his people. And it's like, yeah, I don't really know where I was going with that. Never mind.
That's okay. It's okay.
I had a thought, and then I wasn't finished forming it before I opened my stupid mouth. So it happens a lot. My brain runs way faster than mine.
It's all good. Does. So yeah, so we're gonna dive into that story. This is gonna take a couple of episodes. We're not gonna try and knock this whole thing out in one.
Yeah. So right now the plan is four episodes.
I think we're gonna try and do 4.
We're gonna do 3 each, and then the last plague will be its own. Episode,
because it's so deserving of its own episode.
Yeah, because it's basically God shaking everything the Egyptians hold as holy.
Yes,
right. Like, so. Anyway, so
we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, and it was the tipping point. It was that last plague was a tipping point in Israelite history. Anyway.
Yeah.
So let's get started with what little backstory we have.
Yeah. You want to cover the backstory?
Yeah,
of
sure.
Our boy Moses.
Our boy Moses. So most people have seen The Prince of Egypt. Like, that's the thing that helps when Hollywood does a fairly faithful recreation
Yes.
of a Bible story.
That was such a good movie.
It really was, and also the music is great. And then one of
Yeah.
my favorite YouTubers did metal covers of all of them, which I will show you after because they're that somehow makes it more.
That's great.
Oh,
I love it when
okay.
people do metal covers of not metal things.
I'll probably share it on the Facebook page. His
That'd be
metal
great.
cover of the Plagues, the
please
Plague
do.
song, because it works so well.
Yes.
I actually thought about emailing him and asking him if we could use the intro.
That would be great.
Use that as the intro of the podcast.
Dude, you should.
Anyway, but I think I can actually legally do it as long as it's less than, let's see, 36 seconds, 10% of the whole video. So, anyway, so Prince of Egypt, if you guys, it came out in like 1997, so it's a little older. It's like 22 years old at this point.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Like, wow, that's getting a long time ago. Anyway, so basically the story of Moses starts a little farther back in Genesis. We're going to go back to Genesis. Joseph, our boy Joseph was the first one. He was sold into slavery by his brothers. So Joseph was one of the sons of Jacob, and then Jacob's had 13 sons. I don't think Joseph got his tribe. He had 13 sons.
Yeah, 13.
So 12, and then Joseph was kind of his own little dude.
His own little dude.
And his brothers hated him, so they sold him into slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't get it with that today. And then they just claimed that he died. So, yeah, that in and of itself is kind of probably its own episode. But like,
we'll eventually get to that one.
Yeah, so his brothers sold him into slavery to Egypt. He goes to Egypt, gets framed for raping Potiphar's wife.
Yeah, who's an official of
because
she
wanted to go down with him.
She wanted to get down and dirty with Joseph.
She did, and he said no, so she claimed that he raped her, and he was thrown in prison for 13 years.
Yeah.
And then he actually got into Pharaoh's good graces pretty early on by interpreting dreams for him.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm sure you found out, is actually a fairly common thing. God uses dreams a lot.
Yeah.
I personally don't think I've ever had any.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if he does it as much anymore. I don't know if he ever does it that often in the grand scheme of things. We just hear about the ones in the Bible, so we just kind of assume he did it all the time.
And Hebrews 1:1 says that in times past he spoke in that form of way, in many different ways, and that was one of them. Mm-hmm. But in these days he's spoken by his son and through the apostles. Right. And by the Holy Spirit. Anyway,
moving on. So he interpreted a lot of scary dreams for Pharaoh, and then Pharaoh's like, "You're great." And then he rose him up to the point where he was second in command under Pharaoh. And at the time, Egypt was a powerhouse in the area. Like, Egypt had a huge empire, and they continued to be a strong presence in the Middle East all the way up until Roman times. So
pretty powerful nation.
Yeah, they were a super powerful nation. So like, so Joseph was kind of and during this time there was a famine in where Jacob and his sons were currently living. So they met up with Joseph by a way that I can say is only orchestrated by God. Joseph brought them to Egypt so they could live, you know.
And then there they remained.
For
400 years.
For 400 years. So that's how the Israels made it to Egypt in the first place.
Yes.
And basically a descendant to Pharaoh looked at how numerous the Israelites were getting and how much power they had, and is like, no.
He got freaked out.
He got freaked out, so he enslaved all of them, basically. Yep. He basically conquered a group of people within his own, like his own people. So, and then he enslaved all the Israelites. So that's how they became enslaved. So then they were enslaved. I don't know if they were enslaved for 400 years or they were only in Egypt for 400 years.
They were in Egypt. I think it's fair to say the time span from when they got into Egypt to when they left Egypt was 400 years. Okay. Regardless of how long that enslavement was. Okay. It was 400 years. Okay. So. Yeah.
So so then by the time Moses came around, it was nearing the end of that time period, and God's like, okay, you guys are leaving. You know. So Moses, so Pharaoh, this is a different Pharaoh. They actually, there was actually a point made that they never, the writer of Exodus, which I think is actually believed to be Moses himself. So
Yeah.
this should be fairly accurate.
So this is kind of a firsthand account,
right.
From the dude himself.
Yeah. So Moses. So Pharaoh was getting really he was really pissed off because slavery wasn't getting rid of all the Israelites like he thought it would.
They're still growing really numerous.
And I mean, it was honestly. I mean, I would honestly almost compare it to the Holocaust, kind of like where it's like systematic slavery.
Yeah,
and
I could say so.
of the Israelites, right?
Yeah.
And then so it wasn't working. So he basically said, go through every house, find every male child, and throw him into the Nile River.
Yeah.
So basically, murder all of the male offspring so that they can't reproduce.
Yep.
Hopefully, killing them off in the next generation. Why he didn't just go through and murder them all is beyond me, but I don't know. If he really felt that strongly about it. But Moses is one of these children. But his mom heard about it, put him in a basket of reeds and floated him off down the river, and hoping that someone trying to hide him, hoping that someone eventually find him, and he would be spared.
Yeah.
Then a handmaid from the palace. Was it the handmaid or was it?
No, it was Pharaoh's daughter.
It was actually Pharaoh's daughter.
Pharaoh's daughter.
So Pharaoh's daughter found him.
Lo and behold,
in the river, and is like, "Hey, look, a child!" And started raising him.
Ooh, a child! I know
child.
my father is killing every baby right now, but ooh, a child!
Every Hebrew baby.
Yeah.
And at the time, I'm wondering if there was enough intermixing where she wouldn't immediately recognize him as a Hebrew child.
I also don't know how much intermixing there actually was, because many of the Israelite practices were detestable to the Egyptians. And so I think it's fair to say that they didn't really intermingle.
Almost at all.
Yeah, at all. But of course, Pharaoh's daughter being a woman and, naturally wanting to care for children, seeing this baby, like, in a basket is like, oh, like I have to help this child. And that honestly put Moses in a position of being able to kind of bypass the whole thing, because now, here Pharaoh's daughter has found a child and she wants to take care of it. Like,
and I mean, you could probably speculate the reason she kept the baby. She might have been barren. She might have, and because the Egyptians,
or at least at the time, because she did have a son.
Because the Egyptians were actually deeply religious.
Yeah.
So that might have factored into it. She might have thought it was a gift from the gods. Like, I don't know. So for whatever reason you see fit, Pharaoh's daughter kept Moses and raised him as her own.
Yeah, and I don't think the text actually says that she recognized it as a Hebrew child, and that it was because coincidentally enough, when she handed the child over to be taken care of and be weaned and all that, it was actually back to Moses' mother. Like, he went back to his mother for the first part of his life.
Or, the way I like it is God spared Moses because he had plans, right?
Yeah, of course.
So that's kind of how I see it. However you would like to explain how that happened, but anyway, so that's how Moses ended up in the royal family of Egypt and was highly regarded. I think he knew he was Hebrew.
Yeah, so
grew up knowing he wasn't Egyptian.
Yeah. So he was fully aware of that, and I don't know at what point he recognized that. I mean, there's got to be some clear distinction, like physiologically, between Egyptians and Hebrews, enough to where he knew that.
Right.
Which, of course, also, makes you wonder, okay, well, maybe he did look like a Hebrew child, and she knew that, Pharaoh's daughter. But yeah, so like he is fully aware of this, and the way the story goes, he goes out to see his people. At this point, Moses, he's been raised in Egyptian culture. He's a very learned man. He knows Egyptian literature, Egyptian mythology. He knows all about the Egyptian gods and who they are and what their purposes are and all that stuff. Like, he grew up in the royal family, but yet he has pity for his fellow Hebrews who are being treated so horribly in comparison to him.
Right.
And so, Moses goes out. He sees that one of the taskmasters is beating one of his Hebrew brethren, and he kills the dude.
Yeah.
I don't know how he kills him, but he kills him.
He kills the dude, buries his body in the sand.
Yeah, he buries his body.
And then runs.
Write a song about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, buries his body and then he runs because, of course, that's an offense, and that's
Right.
he would have been killed because of doing that,
Right.
regardless of his standing in the royal court. And then so from there, he takes off into the land of Midian, and that's where he meets his wife, and that's where he's at for, I think,
like 20 years.
Yeah,
He's
a
there
long
for
time.
a while.
He's there for a long time. And as the story goes, he is stumbling along, the mountains or whatever. I think one of his sheep got away or whatever. I'm not sure if the text was clear on that and why he was stumbling around, but he comes across a voice. A voice is telling him, like calling out to him, Moses, and he beholds in this one area, there is this bush that's on fire. And he's like, why is that bush not burning?
Yeah. I mean, I'd go check it out. I'd be
Yeah.
like, what?
That's a sight to behold. A bush is not burning up.
Yeah,
it's
but
on
it's
fire.
on fire. I'd go check it out.
The bush is on fire. The roof is on fire.
Oh, I missed it.
Dang, you missed it. Anyway, the bush is on fire, Ben. So yeah, we're so now here is Moses with this burning bush, and as he's approaching, of course, at this point, this is holy ground, and God even tells him, like, take off your sandals, don't come any closer, because this is holy ground. And so Moses comes forth, and as he's standing there, God is basically giving him his new commission. Like, I have heard the cries of my people. I am here to rescue them. I am here to fulfill the covenant that I made with their forefathers.
Right.
Like, I've heard their cries, and I have a promise to fulfill. And that goes even back to Abraham when he promised that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars and the sand and the ocean and all that stuff. And that, for the most part, has been fulfilled. Like, this nation is freaking ginormous, enough to make the greatest and most powerful nation nervous when you think about that.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of Hebrews around at this time, despite even the killing of all those young boys at that time. And so now God gives him a mission to go and tell Pharaoh, like, let my people go, and they're going to come and sacrifice to me. And so Moses, of course, at this point is like, nah, dog, I don't want to do that, because I'm not a learned man. I'm slow of speech. Can you please send someone else? Like, Moses at this point is just like not down for this idea.
Right.
He's like, they won't listen to me. Who am I that they're going to even pay attention to me?
Right.
He's.
Well, I mean, I think it's one kind of segueing off a little bit. I think that kind of, looking at how God will equip people. Like, there is no one better equipped to do this from a personal standpoint, right? Because you look at who Moses was, right? He grew up in the Hebrew court. He knew the customs. He knew he probably knew the people by name. Like, yeah. And they do this in the movie, The Prince of Egypt. Like, the Pharaoh ends up being his brother, his adopted brother.
Yeah.
Whether
or not that's actually,
I don't know if that's actually true. It's not impossible. They don't tell you who Pharaoh is.
Yeah.
So, but it is possible.
Makes for a good movie.
It makes for a good movie, and it's a good story. So, maybe it was true. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're not going to go down that road. But, but he would have known the Pharaoh by name. He would have known, or the current Pharaoh by name, because chances are, if it was Pharaoh's daughter that raised him, the Pharaoh at the time would have been his grandfather, and if that Pharaoh died, then his son, who would have been Moses' adopted father, I guess, or uncle, probably would have been.
The text says that the people who sought your life are dead now.
Yeah.
Like, basically, the Pharaoh that once wanted you dead is now dead. And so,
so
the sentence on your head is gone. It's been lifted.
Moses would have looked at Pharaoh and seen family. But then also Moses was a Hebrew and would have been able to relate. I mean, he had trouble relating to some of the people. Like, that's actually in the book. They're like, who are you to speak for us, kind of thing. Yeah. It's like, we don't care if you're Hebrew, like you're... Yeah, and anyway, but point being, it's like, I think that there's actually a lot of truth where God will make us for a purpose, and God will design like circumstances for us to do his work, and whenever God tells us finally, it said, hey, here's this work I put out for you, most of us will go, nah, I don't want to do that. But if you actually look at how your life is put together, I think that there's a lot of truth to when God makes you for a purpose. Like, I think that there's a lot of truth to that. But then also we can relate on a human level when Moses is like, nah, man, it's like, my life is good. Like, I'm happy. I have my wife. I have my new family. Like, and he's asking him to leave that and go do something, uproot his life, and he's like, no, I'm comfortable and happy. And I don't know, I feel like that actually resonates with me as a person. So because I know for a fact, like right now, it's like if God ever asked me, it's like, hey, I designed you for this purpose, you need to go, and it's something I didn't want to do, I wouldn't want to do it. I'd dig my heels in and be like, nah, you know. And maybe that speaks to a lack of faith on my part. I mean, I think part of it would be like, if God came to me in a burning bush, that would be that'd be so weird, because I mean,
it would be a life-changing situation.
That's one of the struggles now, is like trying to understand whether or not God's speaking to us. But a burning bush is pretty
that's pretty straightforward.
Like
this bush is speaking to you all of a sudden, and that's pretty crazy. So then at this point, Moses takes the commission. He's scared and all that stuff. So of course God accommodates and brings his brother Aaron into the mix. Aaron apparently is a much better, well-spoken man, despite his lack of training in the Egyptian court.
Right.
Which is funny. It's like Moses was the most qualified for this, but because he was, I guess, so not willing to do it.
He might have just been awkward.
Yeah.
There's a theory that Moses stuttered. So
I can see that.
Carries some weight, but
yeah. And so Aaron's now his like mouthpiece kind of a thing. And so they go to Pharaoh. And they basically tell him, hey, let us go 3 days into the wilderness and go sacrifice to our God. You know, our God has met with us, you know, and we want to obey him lest he, you know, strike us with pestilence and with all that stuff. And, you know, we want to go worship him. And Pharaoh, I love his response just because it's just so interesting. Like Pharaoh, when you think of his position in Egypt and who he was, you know, the people of Egypt saw Pharaoh as a god himself. And so here is this, you know, god figure in Egypt being told that another god is wanting this massive, you know, labor union of pharaohs to leave and to go worship him. And so it's pretty much like an offense, or like a battle. What is that? I'm coming to defy you kind of a thing. Like, I don't know.
I don't know
where I'm going with that.
I don't really know where you're going with that.
Anyway, and so Pharaoh's response is, who is the Lord that I should obey him?
Right.
That I should listen to his voice? Like, who is this? Let's pull out the massive book of the large pantheon of gods that we know of. I don't see.
And not only that, but
God
Pharaoh canonically was considered to be the biggest one.
Yeah.
Like he was supposed to be wielded the most power.
Yeah.
Out of all the gods in the Egyptian pantheon.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, just fun side note, but that actually is a really, really important factor later.
Yeah.
So.
And so if anybody would know of all the gods in existence, it would be Pharaoh.
Right.
And yet here is this god of the slave people.
Yeah.
Saying, I'm going to take my people in the wilderness so they can come worship me. He's like, who are you?
Yeah. Who are you to worship? Like, it's like, no, take your puny god and get out. Like,
yeah, pretty much. And that was Pharaoh's response.
So God's like, you what, mate? Like,
yeah. But what I love about this story is that from the gate, when God was speaking to Moses, he basically told Moses, he's not going to listen to you. Like, I'm basically sending you in there knowing full well he's going to reject it.
Right.
And there's a purpose behind that. There's a whole big reason behind that.
Right.
And the reason for that is because Egypt being the superpower that it is, God wants to make everybody know, like surrounding Egypt and in Egypt, that he is the one true powerful God. And the one way to do that is to stomp on the most powerful nation in the world at that time. And so that's the purpose.
Right.
Had Egypt said, sure, go ahead, then God would have reaped no credit from that. And
no one's hearts would have been changed.
Yeah, no one's hearts would have been changed.
Been stuck worshiping this pantheon of lesser gods, right?
Exactly. So. You know, so in a way, God had to make it to where he was going to come out on top. Like, this whole thing was set up to where he can come out as the top God amongst all this, you know, all these other fake gods.
Right.
And so he's fully aware and telling Moses, like, he's going to reject you. Like, you're going to walk in there, he's going to say no. And he's like, that's the plan.
That's the plan.
Don't even worry.
So check this out. No, okay, so then we can get into Do you have more that you want to get into? Or
No. Let's start.
Let's jump right
This
in.
is getting long. Let's tackle the first three.
This is gonna be a long episode. Whatever. Sorry, guys.
Let's do it.
So one of the things that, because Pharaoh was an idiot, he said, "Who are you who is this God that can try to best me?" So God actually went through each one of these plagues was specifically designed to attack a god in the pantheon, you know. And the first thing he did, he said, told Moses and Aaron, go stick your staff in the river, the Nile River. The Nile River, if you've never heard of it, is huge. It is I think it's the largest river in the world. It carries, every year it would flood.
Yeah.
It would flood, the Nile would flood, and then it would deposit fertile soil on the ground, so then Egypt could actually thrive, because it is in a desert. It really is. So the Nile would flood, and then it would deposit fertile soil, and then it would recede, and then they would use that. They would, they'd farm off of it. Like the Nile was their water. Like it was the lifeblood of the Egyptian, like society. So the first thing God did, there's a god. So the god of the Nile is an Egyptian god named Hapi. Hapi. Yeah. So he started to go after the gods. So the first one is Hapi, and Hapi controlled the Nile. He controlled the flooding, and God wanted to show, I am more powerful than he. So he turns the entire river into blood, and then it killed all the fish. It probably, I don't know how long it was. I think it was only 7 days. Like it was only blood for a while.
It was only about a week.
Yeah.
It didn't.
So it probably didn't have anything to do with the actual like flooding of like the flooding aspect of now, but it's just basically God's like, your God is puny. Check this out. Like, it turns Nile into blood, and it kills all the fish in it. So then that's like the major food source. That's their water. And also, if the Nile had been blood for any longer than a week, then a bunch of people would have died of thirst. So
it was never meant to be a plague that like actually killed people. It was meant to be like a warning sign.
Yeah, and it stank.
Yeah, it stank.
It's funny. The Bible specifically says there was a stench.
Yeah, in the good old King James, it stinketh.
Does it really say that?
No, I'm just.
Oh, okay.
It should say that.
I was really excited for a second.
I think it might actually say that. I just didn't look it up, but it wouldn't surprise me if
so
it
on
said
this first one was
it
just
stunketh.
And then so Pharaoh is like, and then he gets his magicians to do it.
Yeah.
And he's like, that was just a trick, a party trick, essentially. So he stays hard. He doesn't listen to.
Which at that point, like the guys probably had some kind of, like I'm of the opinion that they didn't actually have real like power to do it. That they were masters of illusion. Right. That they probably had some sort of, because there is like material that you can throw into water and it turns blood red. Like that's in existence. And so they might have known that, and just, hey, Pharaoh, look, bam, we made blood.
Yeah, and it's like, and he's like, and they wouldn't know, like, back in those days, they'd probably be able to recognize it if they saw it, but like, I mean, if they're like, oh, he made blood, it's like, oh, well, you guys are lying. You're just trying to show off and be flashy. So you'll make me let your people go, kind of.
Yeah, and it's simple enough to say like, oh yeah, they turned the water into blood, but think about that.
I know, like if the water was actually blood.
Blood is thick.
It's thick.
There's
it's dark.
There's platelets in that.
It smells like metals and
and iron.
And iron. It's just
It's like, it's not just this the liquidy stuff you see in the movies.
Right.
They're like, oh, it's blood. No, blood is a thick substance.
Yeah, blood's gross.
And it dries
when it weird. It dries.
It dries up. It makes crusties.
It gets everywhere.
It clots. And so, like, when I picture the Nile turning to blood, it turns into blood, but then it'll start to develop this layer on the top as it starts to
crusty,
as oxygen
clumpy,
gets to it.
Yeah.
It's literal blood. It's not just a red water. It's literal blood, and so it's clumping, it's crusting. There's blood clots everywhere. It's just a gross scene to behold.
Yeah.
It's
gross.
It's so grotesque.
You look at that. Like, I can imagine they do actually a really, really good job of this in the movie.
Yeah.
Is like Aaron, but they have Moses do it. Aaron's almost like not just a minor character. So the movie isn't perfect, but but they do a really good job of like, he'll put it in and the thing turns to blood, And I remember Moses was there, and he was sitting on the bank taunting Pharaoh, and Pharaoh sends his guards to go get Moses. And then while they're coming to get him, Moses puts his staff in, and it turns to blood. And then they freak out.
Yeah.
Because, you would, right?
Yeah.
It's gross. It's blood. It's like, oh my gosh, the river is blood, and I'm swimming in it. Like, this is disgusting.
Yeah.
So
and blood sticks to you.
Right.
You get
like,
stained with blood.
And God is like, and this wasn't designed to hurt anyone. Like this plague was designed to instill some fear.
Yeah.
And horror and
who are you, Hoppy?
It's like who are you? Like it's like Hoppy has no control over this, right?
Yep.
Well, it's like surely something else must be going on here. So that was the first plague.
Yeah.
River blood. And do you want to kind of go into the?
It's
gross.
I keep thinking of it, man.
It's so nasty.
It's such an easy thing to glance over when you're reading it,
right?
But then
it's
you
like,
just really
the
got
river turned into blood. And it's like think about swimming in anything that's not water.
Yeah,
it's just there's something about the idea of swimming in blood that's just especially
just
horrific. It was
innately metal.
It was supposed to be horrific. It was supposed to be gross. Like like
even the worst horror movies do not have enough blood to cover this type of scenario.
It's like a Quentin Tarantino times 50.
Yeah. Not only that though,
everywhere.
it wasn't just the water in the Nile. It was all of the water pots that contained water. Yeah, it says that in the scripture. It says even the pots that are separated from the Nile turn to blood.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, whatever water touched the staff and then from there it permeated. No, all the water in Egypt, contained or non-contained, turned to blood.
Right. And that's kind of a pattern. Like the first three plagues are actually kind of the gods of life-giving, the gods of crops, the gods of and just kind of this idea of God attacking who they rely on for life. Yeah. Right.
So God 0.1, Egyptian gods 0.
Gods 0.
Yeah.
The magicians created it so Pharaoh recreated it well enough where Pharaoh was not impressed.
Yeah.
I guess.
Pretty much.
With all of their water turning into blood.
So flawless victory on God's part.
Right. Okay. So the next plague. So this is a week later, and Moses is like, he comes in again. He says, "Let my people go," and Pharaoh says, "Nah." Mm-hmm. So he goes,
brah.
He goes, "Okay." And do you want to read it? I believe it is in chapter 8 somewhere.
Yeah, right here.
Okay.
Yeah. So then the Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and say to him, Thus says the Lord, let my people go, that they may serve me. But if you refuse to let them go, behold, I will plague all your country with frogs. The Nile shall swarm with frogs that shall come up into your house and into your bedroom and on your bed and into the houses of your servants and your people and into your ovens and your kneading bowls. The frogs shall come up on you and on your people and on all your servants."
That's another one of those things, because it's like frogs aren't harmful, really.
They can be.
They can be. Like they can
These
be
kinds of
venomous
frogs probably weren't.
Like they can be venomous, they can be toxic, but they don't like eat you. They don't.
Yeah, they're just gross.
They're just gross, right? And it's like, and God's really jumping on this and going like, this isn't going to hurt anyone. This is just going to be disgusting.
Yeah.
And
this isn't going to hurt anyone yet.
Right.
Each of these plagues get progressively more and more violent. Starting out with the water turning to blood and now the frogs, these aren't necessarily violent plagues, but they eventually get violent.
I know they get violent and scary and people actually get ill, but like from the frogs, it's everywhere. It got into your food, and it's like
they're in your bowls, they're on your beds.
Right. And then the reason why God used frogs in this instance is because there's an Egyptian god named Heket. Heket. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
I'm white, so
if you're white, it's Heket.
If you're white, it's Heket. And it's she was the goddess of fertility, the goddess of water and renewal.
Yep.
So kind of like this idea of like especially like they get into your food, they get into your bed.
Yeah.
All the places of love.
Yes.
Fertility.
Yeah.
And your food, your renewal, like you eat to rejuvenate, like. And then she was also often portrayed as a frog with a human body.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of this idea of like this goddess can't protect you from the frogs. Like it was kind of a pointed attack at this specific god.
Yeah.
Because like everyone look at that and just be horrified.
Yeah.
By by that, and God's
Yeah.
like, I will use the frog against you.
I love what you just said. Your goddess can't protect you from me.
Yeah,
That is so metal.
that's so metal.
I'm going to take your frog goddess and I'm going to throw them all over your country.
I know. It's like, see how you like it now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, and yeah, so it's just gross, right? It's
Yeah.
like it gets into, like, can you imagine like opening up your cereal and there's like a bunch of frogs in
Yeah.
there, like frogs getting into your fridge and
Yeah.
your clothes, and it's just
Or again, it's the goddess of fertility. Imagine the
Right.
people trying to, do the nasties at that time, and there's freaking frogs jumping all over you.
everywhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it wasn't supposed to be harmful. It's just gross.
It's very gross.
Nasty.
They're
Yeah.
probably these big, like
Nasty,
ugly, wart,
nasty frogs.
nasty, just slimy
Gross
frogs.
frogs, yeah. And it's like it's just gross, and
Yeah.
and it's one of those things where it's just you're very God's very pointedly, and the reason why I think that these 3 plagues were particularly harmless, relatively harmless, were because these ones actually affected the Israelites as well.
Mm-hmm.
After plague 3, they stopped attacking the land of Goshen, which is
Yeah.
Moab. So
Yeah, that is another point to
Mhm.
bring up, that these 3 plagues actually did affect the Hebrews as well. It didn't make a distinction up until after the 3rd plague.
right,
And so it's reasonable to say that even the water that the Hebrews had turned to blood, that even the area of Goshen was filled with frogs. Like this
Right.
this was out throughout the entire land.
Mhm.
So yeah, good point.
yeah,
And then we have number 3.
3,
Yeah. So number 3 is the Gnats.
the Gnats.
The Gnats.
I've also seen it translated as lice, but I think gnats
True.
is better because they're like, that would make more sense in a swampy river delta.
Yeah.
So
And so in same chapter 8, verse 16, it says, Then the Lord said to Moses, Say to Aaron, Stretch out your staff and strike the dust of the earth, so that it may become gnats in all the land of Egypt.
Mhm.
Straightforward.
Yeah,
That's
just-
pretty much it.
turn all your dirt into gnats. And if
Yeah.
you're living in a desert, there's dust.
Oh my gosh. There's
So and
Did you see
it's-
pictures of the recent locust thing
No.
that happened in Vegas?
No,
Dude, it was intense.
that sounds horrifically gross.
Like I saw videos, pictures. I have family out there, and
Mm-hmm.
it was intense. Like especially at night when all the lights are being covered by freaking
Locusts.
yeah.
Ugh.
It was
just creepy crawlies, just gross me out, man.
exactly. So you can imagine the scene starting
Right.
out with just
well,
gnats.
gnats are like, so think like mosquitoes
Yeah,
is probably
yeah,
our closest parallel now.
yeah.
Like mosquitoes everywhere, and they said that they're just covered.
Yep.
Like the people were covered, the livestock was covered in mosquitoes. Like it's just
Oh, there was more.
Oh.
And they did so. Aaron stretched out his hand and his staff and struck the dust of the earth, and there was gnats, and man and beast, all the dust of the earth, that there were gnats on man and beast. And all the dust of the earth became gnats in all the land of Egypt. And the magicians tried their secret arts to produce gnats, but they could not.
they
So-
could not, and they
they could
actually could
not.
produce frogs. I mean, I would imagine it was probably something about like. Anyway, sorry. Going back to the frogs though.
Mhm.
Instead of God removing the frogs, they all just died,
Yeah,
and they were left in piles to rot throughout the city.
yeah, that stinketh.
That stinks. Anyway, but the magicians were able to recreate frogs, and then they weren't able to get rid of them though. So
Yeah.
um,
Verse
but that-
14, it says,
yeah.
it says, and when they gathered them together in heaps, being the frogs, the land stank.
the land stank.
It
It's
stank.
filled with rotting flesh.
Ugh.
Nothing.
Rotting
Nothing.
frog flesh.
Nothing reminds you, like for me, there's something about scents specifically that'll trigger memories that
Yeah.
help me. Like I'll smell something
Yeah.
and it'll bring back super vivid memories of something else. Like there's something specifically about smells that really burn something into your memory.
Yeah.
And I think that was intentional.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That smell is never going to leave their nostrils.
right, like if they ever smell rotting frogs again,
Yep.
like
It'll be
instantly their brain will be back to
Instant reminder.
Yeah.
PTSD.
I mean, I don't know how often these people would smell rotting frogs. I
Nah.
don't know if that was a particularly common thing, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. And then the gnats.
The
you know,
gnats,
dust of
yeah,
the earth.
and then the literally the dust of the earth. Like God, there's the Egyptian god here is Geb or Seb. I don't know how to pronounce that because again, I'm
It's
white.
a Geb.
So it's a Geb. Okay. And generally they, that one he was the god of the earth.
Mhm.
You know, like the Lord of the dominion over the physical earth.
Yeah.
And so God's like, I'm gonna take this and then turn them into gnats. Like
Yeah.
so like there's like this pattern of God taking this God who's supposed to watch over this thing, and then flipping
Invading
it. And
Yeah.
like there's like this is their space, and God's coming in and he's like, I'm invading your space.
He
and
kicked down the door.
turning it into the thing that this God is supposed to protect. He's turning the very essence of it into a nuisance for the Egyptian people. Like
Yeah.
so it's just like
again just spitting in the face of all of these Egyptian
right
gods.
And it's like there's something even more, because like there's something that feels angry about specifically harmful plagues, but when stuff like this, it's mockery. It feels like he's mocking these lesser gods, where he's like, I will take everything and I will just turn it into gnats.
Yes.
I will take your Nile and turn it into blood.
Yep.
Like, and kill everything that lives in it. I will take, your, this frog god lady.
Yep.
Like, and so
and just utterly embarrass all of them.
Just embarrass. Yeah. It's like this phase is God just mocking the Egyptian pantheon and saying, you guys are worthless. You have no power here.
Yeah.
Right. Or showing the Egyptians is like, your gods are nothing.
Yes. The God of this slave people, even. This is such an underdog story.
Right.
Because you have these people that are enslaved by this very powerful, great nation. Everybody fears the Egyptians because of how powerful they are. And yet this God of the slave people shows up and just makes a complete mockery of their gods. Like, he's pissing in their cereal, pretty much.
That's probably the best way I've ever heard it described. Yeah, it's just, God is just, I mean, I don't think he necessarily enjoyed it, but I think there's some grim satisfaction.
No, I think he enjoyed it.
I think he enjoyed it.
I think he enjoyed it.
He enjoyed
God is a God of vengeance.
Yeah.
He enjoyed it.
He's just like, you guys follow these gods. Check this out.
Check this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, so those are the first three.
Yeah.
And we're starting to get a taste of what God's doing. It's like, stop doing that. We're starting to get a taste of what God's doing, and it's just, and he's, I think he's intentionally being not super harmful now, but just wait for what is to come.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because all along this time, Pharaoh's hardening his heart. The people are hardening their hearts, and
they're not listening.
And this is purposeful. God knew that they wouldn't listen, and we can get into this at some other time, but there's even an influence on God's part that's making them not listen as well. So there's a dual thing going on here, where the whole purpose of this is so God can display his power in this time to the entire world at that point, so that when nations outside of Egypt, when Israel's going up to the land of Canaan, people in the land of Canaan heard about this event. They're like, wait a minute, is this the God that destroyed the Egyptian gods?
Right.
Oh no.
Right.
Like everybody knows that their gods are inferior to the Egyptian gods.
This is a straight up talking point.
Yeah.
It's like the Egyptians, or it's like, and there was such an idea of like back then of the power of your God was proportional to the power of your people.
Yeah.
Right. So like, it was very much like OG proto prosperity gospel, right? And so like people look at this and say, this God stomped on the Egyptian gods.
Yeah.
He's so much more powerful. And it's like, and there's this element of like pseudo spiritual warfare going on, where God often will go head to head with what people think to be the gods.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's like, there's no one else there, and he just is looking for it as an opportunity to show himself. Right?
Exactly.
So
yeah.
Anyway, cool. Well, those are three. We'll
That's
get
three.
to the next three next week.
Yeah.
But it was wonderful to be able to talk with you guys. So,
I'm Levi.
Comment, like, and subscribe, and that's Levi. All right, I'm Ben.
I'm Levi.
There we go. All right, have a good one.
Bye.